Well, since I did a relatively old game, I actually decided I wanted to juxtapose that review by going into the most recent game to come out in the weeks. Maybe I'll get a pleasant surprise no matter what I pick, and it can have a fun experience. Oh, come on! God damn it! I don't want to review this! Why did you have to come out? I've always hated the Metal Gear series. They're just a set of horribly written games with long drawn out cutscenes and their stupid empty boasts about their pioneering and stealth mechanics. When it really only became arbitrary in later games, and later the Thief series taught us what can really be done with stealth. Ooh, and look! Another game Hideo Kojima can write all over and make... wait 1 second. He didn't write it this time? Who did? Oh, it was Etsu Tamari. Well, he can have these insults too. I'm actually surprised that this game made me the angriest out of all the games, considering I barely remember anything about whatever the hell happened in Metal Gear Solid 4, and I didn't even bother doing research because I don't want to and I don't care. But it doesn't really matter because only maybe twice are the Patriots mentioned, and usually it just comes down to talking about how they failed and we want to be better and blah de blah de blah. Let's get this pile of shit over with. Try and guess how long it took the game to actually let me play it. Go ahead, just guess. It took me 5 minutes and 13 seconds of cutscene to actually start the game. And you know what? That isn't nitpicky at all, because any cutscene longer than a second is a stab in the game as a whole and gives creators stupid reasons to ruin the game. And we'll get to that later. Let's just talk about the story for now. Actually, no, I am not done harping on this game. Let's talk about the concept of how Raiden, yes, that annoying whiny pansy-ass son of a bitch from Metal Gear Solid 2 is the main character. I mean, come on, Kojima. Yes, I know you didn't write it, but you claim responsibility for the plot and design for the game, so you can just deal with it, you crybaby. Why would you ever make a game with the main character of a game in your series that even the fans didn't like? I mean, come on, that is not a smart decision. Whatever. In any case, the game was actually originally designed to be an interquel between Metal Gears 2 and 4, and thank God it was changed, because anyone that will use the word interquel to describe a game that takes place between two other games instead of saying, oh, it takes place between these two games, can go freeze in the ninth circle of hell! I thought about breaking down every section of this game from plot to graphics to gameplay, but that would take a few hundred years, and I only have a weekly show that has a 15 to 20 minute limit that I actually try to keep, believe it or not, so you can suck it, WD Conine. Point is, the plot takes its first turn it can down to insane convolution and bullshit that I can't fathom. The game tries to pull the stupid moral of not giving a damn about the people you can't save, and just try not saving the people you can. But then that gets pushed off a cliff for the next moral that all politicians are corrupt and lie and will use military equipment to inject themselves with a MacGuffin to make them a cyborg. Well, you know how the expression goes. A politician can talk for hours and still inject itself with superhuman death goo. I think that's how it goes. Don't quote me on that. Yes, there are spoilers in case I made a few hundred just a second ago, but honestly, if you have played any Metal Gear game, this is pretty much the same stupid military conspiracy with characters that do that annoying repetition of your name when you die, and even that stupid beep sound when you get caught when you are stupid enough to actually play this game stealthily. You know the sound. Raiden has no personality, which I guess is a plus. But then the game gets really boring really fast, with characters randomly introduced with backstories you were supposed to have known before all of this, or backstories they pull completely out of their asses. The technology they have is actually not very well defined. Even Raiden's design is a giant contradiction. What, you can give him a new fantastic body when he gets his arm sliced off at the beginning, and you can hook his eye sensor thing to a ship to let him see exactly where he is, but you can't replace his one eye he lost and just put a stupid looking bandage over it? There are just so many design flaws with this game. It doesn't even matter if Kojima didn't write this. The writing is still just as legendarily bad and generic as per usual. He probably took lessons from Kojima. They try to do the same conspiracy story, and some of Raiden's friends actually question his morals, especially since a second ago he had killed several cyborgs, gutted a giant robot, and sliced up other human soldiers like Christmas wrapping paper. What kind of tone is this game trying to set? Is it trying to be fun and action-packed, or an intense conspiracy movie? Either way, both of those methods of storytelling fall flat on their asses and fail miserably. Speaking of killing, the combat isn't so great either. It has gone from stealth and third-person shooter to hack and slash with in-game upgrades to combat and even lovely QuickTime events, along with trying to add their fiddly little stealth sections. If their plan was to make a fun experience so we would overlook the shitty story, then it backfired amazingly, because it is severely lacking. If we took a good hack and slash game like, say, the archetypical hack and slasher God of War, that game had good camera angles, so we didn't need the right analog stick to control it. Instead, it was used to evade, and a shoulder button as a dedicated block button. And the QuickTime events were a big portion of the game, so it could keep you tense and on your toes, and you wouldn't press the wrong button and get swallowed by a mutant horseman. Here, the QuickTime events are far off and few between, to where you forget them, and when you go through an action sequence, one will come up that you can't possibly be prepared for, and you lose a massive chunk of your life because your reaction times aren't good enough. Also, the QuickTime event where you have to shake the analog stick to escape being stunned never works, or takes too long, and you might as well just let yourself be hit again and come back even faster. There's no blocking button. Your only method of defense is using light attacks with the analog stick to block other attacks, and the indication of where and when they will attack is vague at best. And you can't even do it on the larger enemies, so ultimately the light attack button is mostly useless, and there is no parry mechanic like, say, I don't know, God of War! It has an effective block, then counterattack maneuver, and also very useful light attacks, and it's actually fun! The new mechanic advertised is something called the Zandatsu Blade, which can completely break the game and have you easily one-shot any enemy you see, or become tedious busy work. You move the right analog stick to control the camera, but you are forced into this blade mode, they call it. So whenever you aren't sprinting and want to look around or actually fight, shifting the camera will stop your character and turn you into a sitting duck when the enemies inevitably gang around you and launch blades into your face. They even try to pull in QuickTime events using the blade mode, which only happens once or twice in the final boss fight. The others only require random button pressing. You turn the angle of the blade with the right analog stick and move where you want to strike with the left. Forgive me for reiterating, but a QuickTime event is by its very nature quick! Fiddling around with both sticks to find the exact aiming spot is not quick, and more often than not gets you killed. The gameplay itself consists of up to 5-minute intervals of sections where you fight giant robots, all of which prevent you from passing, except one particular event that says to not care and just go, and it doesn't block you, and another event that says not to care, but it still blocks you when you get caught. Thanks for being inconsistent, game. Speaking of getting caught, they try to ram in a stealth mechanic using no stealth buttons, except for that stupid box thing that's like a tumor to the tumor-filled series, and that it just has to stay. Like later games, it is completely arbitrary. More, in fact, in a game trying to be a hack and slash instead of a shooter. But since the AI is so inconsistent and is either amazingly stupid, or catching you in ways that couldn't have possibly made you visible, you might as well just let the gameplay pat itself more with repetitive enemies that never really change at all while listening to the same annoyingly boring soundtrack with loud and distracting guitar riffs that clash with the shitty part of the story. Not the action, the other shitty part of the story, with a conspiracy. And it becomes inconsistent. Yes, I know I am saying inconsistent a lot, but in a game like this, it might as well have just replaced the title. Wait, it needs editing. There we go. With all the cutscenes that are plaguing this game and other games, yes, we're gonna get to that later, just wait, it's hard to not notice that the graphics aren't really bad, but the lip syncing is awful, and it has some of the worst effects. I mean, look at this! That is one of the worst water effects I think I've ever seen in the history of graphics. They even use slow motion to hide the fact that the frame rate is dropping in this scene. And seeing as how I noticed the lip syncing, I had to look at the voice acting, which along with the dialogue is subpar and in dire need of talent, which is why it surprised me that the main character was voiced by Quentin Flynn. Yeah, I know, the guy who played as Axel in the Kingdom Hearts series. Despite me thinking of the series as no more than guilty pleasures, I do know that Flynn gave a fun and memorable performance as Axel in the games, so why is he just so lame in here? Quentin Flynn, your voice acting does not suck! Stop pretending it sucks! Which, at long last, gets me to my final point on one of the biggest sins in this game and in gaming as a whole. You may have noticed I have been referencing bad storytelling and cutscenes throughout this review, and that is part of my point, and it goes as follows. Cutscenes as a storytelling medium in gaming need to sign their death warrants and stop existing. All cutscenes are a method to take control away from the player, which ruins the point of a game, since the main point of it is interaction. I was actually a bit confused about it myself, but then my friend, whom I try to respect, until he talks about how good he thinks Superman Returns is, helped me form my opinion. Too often are stories being told through cutscenes, and have events that could have just been done in gameplay, which is an even bigger damnation. Too many games forget it is possible to tell a story without cutscenes. When you get cutscenes, the creators get excuses to pull stupid shit, like taking your weapons when you would normally have them, in an attempt to separate the story and gameplay. Take Dead Space for example, a relatively modern game that, while bland, has one cutscene at the end and arguably one at the beginning, and only takes your control away when it is absolutely necessary. The rest of the story is told through video communications and dialogue between the player character and the non-player characters, and gives you the option to ignore it and continue on your own accord, or listen in, leaving the choice to the player. Granted, the doors are locked, and you are usually stuck there, so it might as well be a cutscene, and is as linear as it looks, but it doesn't take control away from the player, which is my point. But then we have bad storytelling games like Rising, which constantly halt gameplay to fade to black and show a pre-rendered cutscene with events that could have just been told or performed through gameplay. Gaming had cutscenes earlier in the day as a crutch, but gaming as an art form needs to do away with the stupid things and pick up a new way to tell a story. How about as a game? Don't take control away from the player unless you have a damn good reason to do it. Gosh, that was an annoying soapbox. I almost wanted to kill myself after that. In any case, this game is horrid. It is a perfect example of storytelling at its worst. Clunky and boring gameplay, lame performances, and bad writing. Sorry, Hideo Kojima, your games have always been terrible, and apparently they aren't getting better anytime soon.